Welcome to the Fantasy Football Prophet Podcast, hosted by Craig Phillips and Jeff Torrey. Visit us at fantasyfootballprophet.com. And now your hosts, Craig and Jeff.
Welcome everyone to the Fantasy Football Prophet Podcast. I'm Craig Phillips, doing a solo show today as I recap the Week 7 Sunday action around the NFL. Patriots-Falcons game just wrapped up. Patriots get the win 23-7. Falcons really couldn't get too much going offensively there, so that was a big disappointment for the people that ranked, the Falcons players high going into a Patriots matchup. The Patriots defense hasn't been very good, so you're expecting some things there, and you didn't maybe quite get what you're hoping for. But we'll talk about that game and more as we get going here. But make sure you go check us out on Twitter. We're at the FF Prophet. On Instagram, it's Fantasy Football Prophet. The website's fantasyfootballprophet.com. You can always email us if you have any questions, maybe trade questions, start-sit questions next week. It's fantasyfootballprophet@gmail.com. And make sure you guys go check us out. Check our YouTube channel out. It's Fantasy Football Prophet. Go subscribe on there as well. All right, let's talk about this Patriots-Falcons game. Brady had a solid outing. If you're going 6-point touchdowns, he had 22.5. So a decent Brady outing, not the, big-time scoring output that you might hope for, but it was a good game. Dion Lewis, he seems to be the lead back there now. 13 carries, 76 yards. Surprisingly, only one catch for 6, but he's getting the majority of the carries, and something we've been seeing as the weeks go on. He's getting more and more of this. I'd like him as an option even more if he was actually getting the receptions, but that's still James White, who had 5. Gronk didn't do a lot today, only 3 for 51. Cooks got a touchdown. I got 65 yards off 4 catches. Hogan got 4 for 71. So nothing spectacular there. Cooks was a decent play. White, if you happen to have to play him, you got that touchdown to help you out there. But the Atlanta side, and until that, late touchdown there to Julio, it was ugly before that. Matt Ryan ends up getting you 19, which going into this matchup, this was supposed to be, you were expecting a big output because everyone else has put up big numbers against Patriots, and it didn't happen for Ryan. Julio salvaged his day there at the end, 9 for 99 and a touchdown, so it looks pretty decent. Sanu coming back from injury at 6 for 65. Freeman, 12 carries, 72 yards. So good yards per carry. Just they were down the whole game. You couldn't really establish the running attack very much. And then because of that, Coleman, just not much there, 6 for 16. So kind of a disappointment for the Falcons. And this is something we've been seeing all year. Their offense is just not the same as they were last year. And maybe it'll improve, but it's going to be tough to get. They're not going to ever come close to last year's levels again. All right, should just run down some games here. Go, the rest of the matchups for the week. How about the Jets-Miami game? Miami came back at the end there, 17 points in the fourth quarter to take the win. Jay Cutler was knocked out. Matt Moore came into the game, and he filled in fine. Nothing spectacular. It's not like he's really an upgrade from Cutler. It's pretty much the same thing. Jay Ajayi had 23 carries. Nice to see all that work, but only 51 yards. He had 26 receiving yards. You hope he can get going a little more than 51 yards. No touchdowns there. Landry, 93 yards, caught a touchdown. Stills caught 2 touchdowns and 85 yards without Parker there. Both of those guys stepped up and were great plays if you used them. On the Jets side, McCown had a good fantasy output, which he seems to do, on a decent basis here. 30.5 if you're on the 6-point touchdown route. It's extremely hard to trust McCown unless you're in a bind, maybe a 2-quarterback league, then you can play him. But in just a standard 10-team, 12-team league, playing McCown is going to be a bit of a stretch. The running game, no one's taking over the back. No one's a clear player there. It's Powell and Forte, 9 and 7 carries there. Powell had 43 yards rushing. Forte had 41 yards rushing. Receiving side, Forte had 41 yards receiving. Powell had 40 yards receiving. So no one's really standing out. Safarian Jenkins was able to get another touchdown catch. Only 3 for 21, but he's at least being targeted in the red zone. So with how the tight end class has been, he's a good option most weeks if you don't have anybody else, because at least he's going to get some red zone looks. Moving on to the next game here, let's say Carolina-Chicago. Kind of a surprise here. Carolina we thought they were a bit improved, but now Cam Newton, nothing going today. Only 7.4 points through 2 picks, no touchdowns. He had 50 yards rushing to even make his day respectable. Because of that, just his poor game. The receivers, not much there. Benjamin had 65 yards. Funchess 41. nothing going. Running game, 14 for 48 for Stewart, 7 carries for 10 yards for McCaffrey. He had 36 yards receiving, but McCaffrey's not the player we had hoped he was going to be. I mean, he's a fine player. It's just he's not getting the production we had hoped for at the beginning of the season when you were looking at him as at least probably maybe even a running back 2 option. I don't even know if he's a flex option at this point. I mean, PPR leagues still, yes, he had 7 catches. So PPR leagues, that's a much better output. But in standard, it's tough to play him over some of these other guys right now. Chicago side of things, they scored both of their touchdowns off 75-yard defensive touchdowns. Eddie Jackson's 76-yard interception return. Eddie Jackson's 75-yard fumble return. So the offense did not do much at all. Howard, 21 for 65. Trubisky only had 100 yards, throwing a 4 of 7. Just ridiculous. They didn't have to do anything. Cohen caught 1 for 70. Miller 2 for 29. And Gentry 1 for 8. They didn't have to do anything. They got up. Their defense held Carolina. That's all there. I mean, all there was to it. Not much in that game. New Orleans and Green Bay. It was interesting to see what was going to happen with Green Bay without Aaron Rodgers. Could Hundley come in and be an option? He got a rushing touchdown, but passing-wise, it's probably, at this point, this was the worst case for, Jordy Nelson owners, Devontae Adams owners. This is not what you wanted to see. Adams, 2 for 12, Nelson, 1 for 13, Cobb, 2 for 15. Just nothing. What the bright spot is here for Green Bay, it's Aaron Jones, who looks like he has taken over the backfield now. He had 17 carries for 131 and a touchdown. Montgomery only had 4 for 6. We've been saying this for a while here, at least a couple weeks, that Jones looked like the better running back, but it was looking like it might be more of a split going forward. I don't know if it's going to be the split. I think Jones is definitely taking over this, and he's going to be the clear back here, and he's going to be a top 15 option for sure going forward if he's the top running back here, and maybe even better than that, which I'm really interested to see how this goes. But I like Aaron Jones. I like what I've seen from him. And at this point, what do they have to lose? They're going to probably try Jones and see what they got there. New Orleans side of things, Breeze threw the 2 picks, so it kind of hurt his day a little bit there, but still solid 331 yards and a touchdown. Ingram is looking great, finally getting the full amount of work. 22 carries, 105 yards and a touchdown, but Kamara's doing well as well. He's not going to get the big rushing numbers, 57 yards rushing, but he's going to make up for it with 50 yards receiving. So it's nice to see that from Kamara. He's definitely a flex option, at least going forward. Ted Ginn had 7 for 141. Michael Thomas, 7 for 82, so both had solid outings there. Ginn's he's going to have games like this where he goes big for the 141, then he'll do 2 for 12 next week. But, when you're in a spot where you need to play a guy on bye weeks, Ginn's not the worst option in the world. New Orleans, seems like they're a little better this year. The defense is better than you expected, I believe. Jacksonville and Indianapolis, and the Colts couldn't get anything going against that tough Jags defense. 27-0. Gore had 9 for 34. Marlon Mack had 5 for 26, caught 4 balls for 40 yards. I still think Mack's the better running back there. He's the more dynamic, the more exciting, more explosive guy. With this team, they're just not very good without Andrew Luck around. So why waste your time? Gore is a good option on a team that's a good team. Needs a steady guy there. When you're this bad, why not see what the young guy can do? I want to see what Marlon Mack can do, and I hope Pagano maybe will make some kind of change going forward. Receiving wise, Hilton only had 2 for 27. Disappointing there. And just what are you going to do, though, when you're not going anywhere with this offense? Jacksonville, without Leonard Fournette today, it was interesting to see what was going to happen. Most people put Chris Ivory into their lineups. And, it made sense. They're going against the Colts. Ivory's going to probably get the majority of the work. He did get the touchdown, 47 yards, and made himself a decent play. But TJ Yeldon was the story there. 9 carries, 122 yards, and a touchdown, which is nice to see from Yeldon. Don't know what this means going forward. Probably nothing. They got the bye next week. Leonard Fournette will be back the week after, and he'll be hopefully getting his 20-plus carries again. So that's probably what's going to happen there. Hearns got 5 for 101, and Marquise Lee 4 for 72 if you had to use them. Still not recommending using any of the Jacksonville receivers going forward this year. It's not a great option, but yeah, I know things happen, bye weeks, injuries, you might have to. But Tampa Bay and Buffalo. Buffalo gets the win here, led by LeSean McCoy's 91 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns. He also got 31 receiving. Deontay Thompson, I believe he got cut by Chicago not too long ago. 4 for 107. Nick O'Leary only had 2 catches but got 58 yards out of it. I know there were some people out there playing O'Leary. On the Tampa side, Doug Martin had 20 carries, only was able to get 49 yards out of it. Mike Evans did get the 7 catches for 88 and a touchdown. O.J. Howard was a big story here. 6 catches, 98 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Kind of nice to see that from the rookie. And Brate had 6 for 60 there. But if Howard becomes any more of an option, it's going to hurt Brate, who was starting to look like a top 10 tight end every week. There's still room for both of them. And Howard was just left wide open on that big touchdown that got the majority of it. So I don't know what that exactly means. Obviously Howard has talent. He's a first-round draft pick. They want to use him. And you know what? This could be the sign of some things to come, but Brate's still going to be fine. Baltimore, Minnesota. Minnesota gets the win. And this was the interesting one. It was Jarrett McKinnon was the story coming in. Everyone's expecting McKinnon. He's taking over this backfield. He's looking really good. Then he gets 14 for 47, 3 catches for 10 yards, and Latavius Murray runs the ball 18 times for 113 yards and a touchdown. This is another one of those things where it's going to probably be week by week who's the leading rusher here. It'll be Murray one week, McKinnon the next. Hard to trust either of them. McKinnon and PPR still should be probably a decent flex option because he's going to, he still had 14 carries, and he's going to get some work in the passing game. So still going to probably use him, but this is why I was hesitant about McKinnon. I've seen McKinnon for a few years now, and he looks good at times. He looks really good at times. And then he has weeks like this where, they don't 100% trust him, and they're going to use Murray there a lot. On the receiving side of things, Adam Thielen, 5 catches for 41 yards. You'll hope for a little bit more without Diggs there. Maybe Thielen would be the best option, but they just wanted to run the ball today against Baltimore. There's not much there. Alex Collins, 10 for 30. Buck Allen had 6 for 20. He does make it himself worthwhile again in PPR by getting the 8 catches, but only 29 yards out of it. It's hard to play these guys. Alex Collins, keep hoping to see something there, but I don't really think he's much of a NFL player here. He's a fine average back, but that's about it. And on a bad team, that's not going to get you anywhere. Buck Allen's still probably the better option as we go on here. Not a great option, but he's an okay flex option, mainly in PPR, but if you have to in standard, you could do worse than that. He's going to probably get you a guaranteed 4 or 5 points kind of a thing. Dallas just roughed up San Francisco today behind Ezekiel Elliott's 26 carries, 147 yards, 2 touchdowns, caught the 1 for 72 and a touchdown. Just a monster game from Zeke. In standard scoring, it was 39.9. In PPR, he gets over 40.9. Dez got the touchdown, got 63 yards, 7 catches. Solid outing there for Dez. Dak Prescott keeps looking good, 234 yards, 3 touchdowns. He's a top 5 option, I believe, at this point. And he's doing it most weeks. Yeah, I know it's San Francisco, but Dak has been great. For San Francisco, Carlos Hyde, 68 yards, got 20 receiving, so he's okay option. No touchdowns, though. Receiving-wise, Garcon had 49, Goodwin 80. It was just not a good game for San Francisco at all. Cincinnati and Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh gets a win. Roethlisberger throws 2 touchdowns, so he's a decent day. Bell, 35 carries. 134 yards, and he also caught 3 balls for 58, so he just continues to be one of the best. To me, it's still Bell's my number 1 guy going forward. Zeke's right there, but it's still Bell's my top running back. Antonio Brown, not as good of an outing, but he makes up for it with a touchdown, so no worries. It's Antonio Brown, he's going to be great. But Martavis Bryant, only 1 catch for 3 yards. I don't know what to think about Martavis Bryant. At this point, you are not starting Martavis Bryant. I don't even you can keep him on your bench, but I wouldn't start him until you see anything going on here because this is just, it's terrible. You can find a guy off your waiver wire that's going to be a better option than Martavis Bryant at this point. And if somebody gets you 3 points, it's going to be a better option than Martavis Bryant because this has just been terrible. I don't even know what to think about this. It's hard to cut a guy with that much talent and could become a good player at some point here. But if you need fill-ins for bye weeks, if there's a waiver wire pickup you want to make, I guess you could just drop Bryant because I just don't know if I see a lot of fantasy success right now in his future. Over for Cincinnati, Joe Mixon, you keep wishing he would get a little more work here, but today was only 7 carries. Did well with him for 48 yards. That was nice to see, but there's not the workload there yet. I know they were down, but it wasn't like they were terribly. It was only 20-14 at halftime. This wasn't this blowout that they had to abandon the run so much, but it seems like that's what they did. And then A.J. Green, only 3 for 41 for Cincinnati. Just not a good day for them at all. Chargers and Broncos. Now, this one was a bit of a surprise. Broncos get shut out, 21-0. Simeon doesn't look good right now. Anderson was the leading back, 10 for 44, but they're down. They can't really run the ball very much. So it ends up being a major disappointment. Demaryius Thomas, only 2 catches for 9 yards, especially following up last week where he actually looked pretty good there. Chargers side of things, it's tough to go against that Broncos defense, but they get the win. But Gordon, only 18 carries, only 18. It's still great amount of carries. 18 carries, but only 38 yards. Caught 1 for 6, so wasn't a good fantasy output for Gordon. Team gets a win, so I guess that's all that matters for him there. Hunter Henry led the receiving with 4 for 73. Keenan Allen, 3 for 41. You really weren't expecting much, though, against this Broncos D. Rivers got 2 touchdowns, so he solid outing, but Chargers get the win, so I guess that's all that matters for them. Then we go another shutout. It's the Rams, 33-0 over the Cardinals. I mean, this one was a bit of a shock to me. We thought we saw Adrian Peterson just dominated last week, and maybe that's a sign of things to come, but only 11 for 21. And then Carson Palmer breaks his left arm, goes out. He's gonna miss probably 8 weeks. Drew Stanton steps in, 5 for 14 and a pick. Going forward here, Drew Stanton as a quarterback. I'm not liking the Cardinals' chances. I don't like this for Larry Fitzgerald, obviously. I mean, and John Brown and Jaron Brown and J.J. Nelson can just be... I wouldn't even use those guys at this point. Peterson still can be used. Fitzgerald, though, he's not a top 15 option to me anymore if Drew Stanton's his quarterback. This is going to be a worry for a while here. For the Rams, Todd Gurley just keeps getting it done. 160 yards rushing and a touchdown, and has 48 yards receiving, so just keeps doing it. Sammy Watkins, 3 for 42. I guess it's better than he's been doing. Woods, 5 for 59. Kupp, 4 for 51 and gets the touchdown. But nobody's really standing out there. It's probably hard for me even to play a Rams receiver. I know people are still playing Kupp, but he might get a touchdown here or there. But I don't know. You're playing Gurley here and loving that, but the receiving options they're okay, but no standout, especially not Sammy Watkins at this point. Seattle gets a 24-7 win over the Giants, who could just do nothing. Eli only had 134 yards passing. Darkwa, after his big game last week, 9 carries for 35 yards. I mean, he really didn't get a chance to get going, so it's hard to say much. Ingram, though, keeps being a great option at tight end, 60 yards receiving and a touchdown. The rest, there's nothing else there at all, but it's basically you play Ingram, and that might be it from this offense now. Seattle, Russell Wilson throws 3 touchdowns in the second half for a big game. The rushing attack, both Rawls and Lacey had 11 carries, 36 and 34 were the yards. No, difference really between the two. Not much going with the rushing. But Doug Baldwin, nice to see, 9 for 92 and a touchdown. Graham caught a touchdown. He had a couple drops, though, that were pretty bad early on in the game. And then Paul Richardson gets the 61 yards and a touchdown, and somehow gets the touchdown on that. Just ball Wilson threw up, and they give it to Richardson, even though it was definitely a dual catch, but I guess it goes with the offense. So nice touchdown there. Tennessee Cleveland goes to overtime. Tennessee wins. Just all field goals this game. 4 for Suckup, 3 for Zane Gonzalez. So when you see that, there's not too much offensively going on. Mariota was the disappointment here, because a lot of people played Mariota going against Cleveland, and he gets you 8.9 points. DeMarco Murray led the backfield with 18 for 59. Derrick Henry, only 13 carries for 13 yards. And quite a few people played him after he had the big numbers last week, which really, though, came off one big run there towards the end. And, then this backfield just not what you expected. A lot more from him. For both these guys, I thought were going to be viable options. And at this point, Murray still is, but you can't really be playing Derrick Henry right now. Cleveland, Kaiser gets pulled again. These quarterbacks just aren't very good for Cleveland. And Crowell, 17 for 35. he's not in your lineups at this point. There's no way you can play Crowell. Duke Johnson, though, gets 71 total yards, so 6 catches. PPR, he's a good option. He's by far really the only good option on this team, or decent option, because you really can't play Crowell at all at this point. And that kind of wraps it up there for the games today. Might as well just talk about real quick, just some of the injuries. We talked about Carson Palmer. He's going to be out for at least 8 weeks now with the broken arm. Mike Wallace got knocked out of the game with a concussion, didn't return. Jay Cutler got knocked out of the game as well. Matt Moore replaced him. It was some kind of chest injury, not really sure what it is there. So we'll have to wait and see what happens to him, going on here. Chris Hogan took a big hit his head there on the ground. He did come back into the game, though, for the first, offense series for the Pats in the fourth quarter. So we'll have to wait and see if there's more going on. Because, this still could be in concussion protocol maybe during the week. Not 100% sure. CJ Prosise came back this week, but then an ankle injury again happened. He's having a hard time staying healthy, which is disappointing because that offense, there's not much going on with that run game. Somebody like Prosise could actually do something there and, be a worthwhile option, much better than Rawls and Lacey are at this point, because those two aren't doing much. It'd be nice to see what Prosise could do. Delaney Walker got, an ankle injury. It looked pretty bad on replay. They're saying it's an ankle sprain. We'll have to wait and see how long, he might be out with that, but it did not look good on the replay. That's about it, though, for the injuries. I'll be back tomorrow. We'll have the waiver wire edition of the show. Maybe a couple options this week. I feel like it's going to be, not as much as we've had in the past. It's mainly going to be maybe guys that have been dropped and should be repicked back up. But we'll go over that for the Tuesday episode of the podcast. And I'll talk to you guys then.